The month of March is set to be a busy one here on the Korean Peninsula, with a series of joint military drills between Seoul and Washington taking place, namely the Freedom Shield slated for next month. And chances are high that North Korea won't hold back. For more, we're joined by Dr. Patrick Cronin from Hudson Institute. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. The Biden administration has long pursued a diplomatic approach to solving Korean Peninsula issues, including North Korea's denuclearization. Now, will Washington's stance remain the same under South Korea's current administration? Because that could result in no progress in easing tensions in the region.
I think the pragmatic, principled diplomatic approach that the Biden administration drew up when it first came into office has been adopted in effect by the South Korean government of President Yoon. And they're working very much in synchronization on this policy. The challenge is that even though the diplomats from the State Department have reached out quietly to North Korea, they've been rebuffed time and again, whether it was providing COVID assistance, humanitarian assistance, or even talking about threat reduction. In the meantime, sanctions enforcement and denuclearization are the policy and the law, frankly, from UN Security Council sanctions and resolutions, so they're going to continue to enforce those.
Right. Well, North Korea has always been top of the agenda under not just the Biden administration, but also in previous administrations. But are there particular reasons as to why the U.S. right now is taking its time ironing out North Korea issues? Is it because North Korea is not a priority for Washington at the moment? What do you think?
North Korea is a priority, and there are senior officials inside the Biden administration who are working 24/7 thinking about what can be done on North Korea policy. But there are other major policies as well. You can see President Xi Jinping accusing the United States this week of containing China's economic rise. The problems with the global economy coming out of COVID, Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. There are a lot of major issues that a global power and a global pivotal state like South Korea have to manage. In the meantime, no process can compensate for North Korea's behavior. You just mentioned the drone intrusion, for instance, or the unprecedented missiles from last year. This is North Korea's problem, and we really can't fix that. All we can do is deter war, as Assistant Secretary of Defense Eli Ratner told me last week.
And also, let's talk about the statement that was released by the sister of the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Kim Yo-jong, yesterday. She warned of taking, quote, overwhelming actions against the joint drills conducted by Seoul and Washington. Now, if the North does take some form of action through warnings or even military provocations, how do you think Washington will respond? Would that be followed by more drills or more sanctions?
Well, you should take Kim Yo-jong seriously, but not literally. And so when she says unprecedented action, she's probably referring to a low trajectory, long-range missile test that could come closer toward the United States. The Indo-Pacific commander, Admiral Aquilino, apparently said that we could maybe shoot that down if we had to. And she apparently responded that could be an act of war. But you can't have an act of war if you have an unlawful missile test in the first place. It really has no sense. You're already violating international law. What we really need, though, is North Korea to come back to the diplomatic table and negotiate in good faith. And they seem to be hiding from diplomacy. And what comes next from U.S. South Korea? It's not just more exercises. It's really strengthening our close, extended deterrence process. It's also maybe building up trilateral cooperation among Japan, Korea, and the U.S., including on missile defense issues, a very sensitive issue.
Right. Lots of actions, more to come with the Freedom Shield slated for next week, and also upcoming summits between the two leaders of Seoul and Washington next month, right?
Very big summit because President Yoon will be coming to Washington for a major state dinner as a real statesman. I know he's dealing with tough issues there in South Korea and in the region, but he's looking like a statesman internationally.
Right. Strengthening South Korea-U.S. alliance, and also North Korea will no doubt top the agenda next month as well.
It'll be very much at the top of the agenda. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight this morning, Dr. Cronin.
My pleasure.